In terms of damage, I suffered very little. You can see, as they say, rubbing is racing, where a car has rubbed down the side. This looks as though this has come out a bit, but I don't know. But this is purely on the surface, and in fact I can scratch it off with my fingernail, as you can see. So I should be able to polish that off, but it has put a dent just there in that line. So I'm not going to try and repair that at the moment, because I'm going to get more of this as the season goes on. I'll wait until I build up a bit of damage, and then I'll probably try and push it out and sort it out. This skirt, I don't know what's happened to this. It seems to have moved, unless it's to do with the fact that that's got pushed in there and it's sort of flipped out at the back, which it could be. So I may have a look at that, but again, not too worried. From a distance, it's not going to notice, so that's not an issue. The only other thing is this green marking here on the back. I'm really puzzled as to how this happened, because there's no damage to the bumper, but I've got that. I think what it might be is a tow eye or something like that. I know I did get nudged from behind. It was only a very light tap, but I definitely did get tapped. So I guess that's what's caused that. A further issue I had, not damage as such, but just a bit of a problem, was with this rear-facing camera. The first thing is I took it off of the mount, and I think I've lost the lock nut. It might be under this, under the sort of temporary flooring thing on the boot, and I'll have a better look. But so that's an issue. But the reason I had to take it off is because I was trying to figure out why it wasn't recording. So in the practice session on Friday, when I looked in the mirror, I could see the display on the other side of the camera was flickering, and it seemed to be repeatedly rebooting. And when I retrieved the files from it, they were all corrupt. So then what I did on Saturday was I took the camera off on Friday, brought it home, charged it because it was completely flat. The battery was completely flat. I charged it at home, did some practice recording just around the house, and it worked okay, and the files were not corrupt. And then it seemed to work okay during qualification, but it seems that the USB connection is not charging the camera properly, and I think it's not making a proper connection. Now, there's one of two possibilities there, well, three actually. Either it's a faulty cable, it's a faulty cigarette lighter to USB adapter that I've got in the front of the car that actually powers this thing, or the camera's faulty. And I'm going to have to somehow figure out which one of those three things it is. I have got an idea, which is to use a much shorter cable, probably the cable that came with the camera, and I've got a Dell power block, which has got a USB power output. What I'm going to do is, I'm going to Brands Hatch to do some practicing in a couple of weeks. I'm going to somehow rig up the Dell battery pack inside the car and strap it up to the roof or something, and we'll see if it works in that configuration. Because right now it's a real pain in the butt, because we couldn't get it started, and then it's supposed to start when it detects power on the USB, but of course that's all dodgy and the battery's flat on it, so it doesn't start properly, and yeah, it became a real nightmare. And in fact, I haven't checked, but I very much doubt I've got any rear-facing footage from the race on Sunday. So that has definitely got to be sorted, as that is a scrutineering failure. The rear view mirror performed okay, but gradually it did start to droop, so it would gradually turn downwards, and I had to turn it back up. I think I had to do it twice during the 90-minute race. Of course, if the thing gets any looser, you know, the ball joint that it sits on, it could be a problem. So I think what I'm going to do is try and put some sort of counterweight on the other side of the bracket so that it tries to balance out the additional weight of the frame and the extended mirror. So that's it for sort of internals, and I think next let's have a look at the wear on the tyres. Okie dokie. So I'm still getting these ridges of rubber there and there, and I think what's happening is as it's loading up, the forces, I'm trying to think which way it's going to work. I think the point I wanted to make was I think the tread blocks are getting distorted. So they're sort of wearing in a sort of chamfer style. This inner edge is definitely chamfering off, but that's to do with a negative camber. For all that, when I measured the tyre temperatures after, when did I measure them? When I was practicing on Friday with the 35 psi tyre pressures and the camber setting as it is, the temperatures seem pretty even. And it's obviously rolling over onto this edge because it's knocked, I mean I did show you this before, but it's knocked the shoulder off of the edge of the tyre. If we look at a new one, you can see that there's a sort of squarish shoulder on the edge of the tyre, and that's pretty much gone here. So that, for me, that means that I'm not sure you could run much less negative camber. I could try even higher tyre pressures. Apparently some people are running, well, I know a guy who's running about 40 psi. I found 37 quite hard and makes the car quite skittish. He's a bit more skilled than I am at driving, so that probably explains it. He can handle the, you know, he's younger, faster, can handle the odd wayward back end or whatever. Yeah, so I think this is the tyre pressure I need. I am a bit worried that I'm just going to wear these inner edges right out quite quickly, but there's still a, you know, I've done 2 races, 4 track sessions. Yeah, they're still all right. They're still good. I've seen much worse, I can tell you, much worse. So that's the front. Let's see if we can look at the rears without me taking the tyres off. They're wearing okay, actually. And I reckon, again, I measured the temperature across the tyres. It was pretty even. I reckon the camber now is right. So 2 degrees, I could probably go slightly less, but I think 2 degrees is quite good. And the back ends felt pretty good, actually. The problem I really had round Silverstone was it's understeer round Luffield, and I guess round Copse to a certain extent, but probably not that surprising, particularly around Luffield. It's just a matter of being patient around that corner. But this has still got the square shoulder on this edge, and in fact it has to a certain extent on this outer edge, so I reckon that's pretty good. And I'm not tempted to do anything to the rear setup at all, actually. I quite like it. The 2 mil each side of toe out was pretty good. It was quite funny breaking into Beckett's because it used to squirm around a bit, you know, in the race. But yeah, I really like it. It turns really well. In fact, Beckett's was really, I thought my lines around Beckett's were mostly pretty good unless I was compromised by another car. So that all seemed good. I've been thinking about the tyre chamfering thing, and I think this is the reason why. If you imagine this is a block of the tyre and you're looking at the rear front tyre. Sorry, you're looking at the front right tyre from the rear, and we're going to make a left turn, then the centrifugal force or side force or whatever is acting in that way on the tyre block, because obviously up here is the main body of the tyre, and then you've got the grip of the track that's resisting it's the block sliding. So what happens is it distorts like that, and so obviously it's going to wear in that sort of shape, which is giving you the chamfering. And the other thing that struck me was, as the tyre wears, I'm guessing that the distortion reduces, which might explain why some people say that tyres that are more scrubbed are better. Perhaps that's the reason why. Also, I guess it raises the question, when you've got new tyres, if you've got one edge really digging into the track, does that give you more grip? I don't know. But I think that's why you get the chamfering effect anyway. The engine is just incredible. It was no trouble at all. I think it's going really well. It still sounds a bit like a sewing machine when it gets hotter. I think the problem is I think the hydraulic lifters have gone. They're worn, and I have been looking at them, and I'm half tempted to replace them. I want to, at some point, I'm obviously going to have a fresh engine in this, but I think if I put some new lifters in it, I'm not sure it's going to give me much more top end, but it might give me a bit more sort of, if I drop off the power range and at lower RPM. So that was good. The transmission is still making the same old noises as it made before. I've still got a bit of a whine from the rear axle, although quite honestly, that's deafened by the sound of the gearbox. But I did notice, if you watch Jez Banks's or the race car radio video of Jez Banks driving his car's even noisier than mine, judging by the noise inside. So yeah. I think I don't think I've got a problem here. I think this is all good. So in summary, I'm really happy with the car. It's just I'm so glad that it's working well. Maybe I could do something about the heavy understeer on the front, but what I think I really need to do is I need to get someone experienced to drive the car, because I don't know enough to know whether I'm getting the handling that I should expect. So I'm going to think about that, because that would be really useful to get some form of comparison from someone else. Other than that, I'm not going to do anything to the car before Brands Hatch. I'm not going to change the oil, because I said I'd change it every 2 meetings. So we can go another one without an oil change. Obviously, I'm going to check all the fluids. I'll look at the brake pads, but I know that it is going through them judging by the amount of brake dust I get in the front wheels, but I'm pretty certain I've got plenty of meat left on those. The other thing that happened was the stupid exhaust rattle. It started to rattle again, which just drives me mad. Anyway, my race engineer got under the car and moved the heat shield down the pipe, and that stopped the rattling, so that was good. He said, why don't you wrap the cross piece that goes under the pipe with exhaust wrap, which is quite a good idea, actually, because then I wouldn't have to worry about it sliding around. But I think what's happening is it's wearing through it where it's rattling, so that may not fix it. I think the ultimate fix is to put another exhaust bracket to support the middle silencer. There isn't one, and I believe I've got that part of the exhaust system is fairly standard. There isn't one as standard on the car, but I think that is what I need. The alternative is, which was suggested to me, is just remove the cross piece, the flat piece of metal that goes under the exhaust. I'm not keen on that. I want to keep that in, I think, because all that's going to happen is the exhaust is going to drop low enough, and then I'm eventually going to ride over a curb and wipe the exhaust out or something. So I don't think I'm going to do that. Yeah, so very little work to be done. Really happy with the car, and just want to get these few things sorted, particularly that rear camera issue.